let's go with number 5. This is Mike in Fremont, California. What would be more likely, a god or a fairy tale? And you're on with Tracie and John.
Hi, Mike.
Now, is that a question for us, I guess? Which fairy tale? Hello? Mike in Fremont, California, can you hear us?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I had you guys on mute.
Okay.
There you are.
So which fairy tale are we talking about?
Let's just, any fairy tale, Tinkerbell, a fairy.
Do you when you hear the story of Zeus, do you consider that a fairy tale or do you consider that a likely god?
I consider the story of Zeus a mythology. That's, I think, the correct categorization for that. I think that's kind of the general consensus.
Okay, so what are you defining as a fairy tale?
I guess a fairy tale would be Peter Pan or Santa Claus or
okay, so with Santa Claus, with Santa Claus, what we've got is a story that says that if you believe and are a good person, you'll be rewarded. And you're asking me if I think that that's more likely than the religious story that if you believe and you're a good person, you'll get rewarded. Is that right?
That's generally the idea.
Yeah, they seem pretty similar to me.
So they're equally likely. True.
Seems that once you start going off on stories, like when I start hearing about the talking serpent and the talking donkey and the woman who's 100 years old who had a baby, I have to say that I'm in the fairy tale market, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to throw you a bone here because I'm not really talking about the story of Christianity. I'm talking about the existence of God,
okay,
right?
But that story is tied to the existence of a God, and I just told you another story that's tied to the existence of a God, and you said, well, that's a mythology. So which God seems likely?
Well, mythology isn't a fairy tale.
I'm okay with you designating it that, but I also assume that what you're saying is that, do you think that mythologies are true? In the sense of mapping to reality?
By definition, are things that we don't really know if they're true or not. They were regarded as true once in a time.
Well, no, I can actually invent. Lord of the Rings is a mythology, and I'm pretty sure that we can say it's not true. It was invented as a fantasy literature.
Lord of the Rings is a work of fiction and would be categorized under fairy tale.
No, it's a mythology.
Do you think that it's possible?
Wait a minute. Tolkien himself said that he was creating an alternative mythology here for the European continent. He said that.
I don't see the point of making a distinction there.
Yeah, I guess I'm arguing pedantic. So yeah.
Like the Hobbit?
Yeah, I'm saying that he was making a mythology. I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. But the point is, I have to agree with John. Just for the sake of moving the conversation along, no, I don't think it's any more likely that a God exists than a fairy.
Well, that's kind of interesting because then I'd have to ask you, why don't you know fairies aren't real?
Who says I don't? Who says that I don't accept that they're not real?
It's like everybody knows they're not real. Why don't you? Everybody knows Santa Claus is not real. Everybody knows Darth Vader is not real. Everybody knows Lord of the Rings is not real.
Yeah, so why do you believe in God when there's no more evidence for that than any of the things you just listed? That's the question I don't get, is how people who understand that all of these things don't have evidence to support them, and so therefore it would be ridiculous to believe in them, then go on to believe in something that has no evidence to support it.
No.
Yes.
The reason, remember the previous caller who asked about ever since he was able to perceive things, he would ask himself, where did everything come from?
Yep, I remember that caller.
That is the nature of believing in God. It doesn't come from...
He didn't say he believed in God ever since he was...
Let me just point out to you that caller was not listed as a theist. That caller was not a theist. Hold on.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm putting you on hold. The caller who said he was asking those deep questions was screened as an atheist. And I want to make sure everyone's aware of that, because what he's basically saying is, and this is about belief in God. And what I'm saying is, this is a caller who was saying, I have these deep questions that plague me, but I don't believe in a God exists. So you're back on, and I just wanted to make the point for the audience that the caller who was asking those questions was not a theist.
Okay, that's fine. But he still said something that was true in his heart, which was that everybody, ever since we're able to perceive things, ever since I saw the first tree in my life, ever since I was able to remember.
I'm getting ready for you to
I've
dismiss
asked
me as a person here, so go for it, because you're about to say that I lied. So tread lightly.
I didn't say that. What I was about to say is that we have evidence for God because the universe itself exists, and we find ourselves here with a conscious mind, and that.
So what? How does that prove there's a God?
For Darth Vader, because they're fairy tales.
How is the fact that you can't just say I exist, therefore God?
That kind of is the nature of
that is a ridiculous argument. I exist, therefore God. Seriously? How about if I say I exist, therefore no God?
I exist, therefore Zeus.
I exist, therefore Santa Claus.
You could. That's exactly why I'm asking you. Why don't you recognize that Zeus and Santa Claus are not real?
I do. Why don't you recognize they're not real?
I do. But
you exist? How can Santa not be real if you exist?
You're the one who told me that you entertained the possibility that they might actually exist. I'm telling you that they don't.
When did I say that?
For a fact. You said that, that you don't really know. You consider or are you saying that you do know for a fact that God does not exist?
I'm saying, I have actually said before, and I will say it again, that to the extent that anybody should be able to say that fairies do not exist, they should be able to say that a God does not exist. If you can't make those two statements...
So you know God does not exist, you know it.
I'm saying that to the extent that a person can say that fairies do not exist, they should be able to say that a God does not exist.
Right? You don't have evidence, neither do I.
Right.
I don't know. You don't know.
But where there is where there should be, where there should be evidence and there is no evidence, that is evidence against something. Do you understand that?
So you're saying that you're saying that you don't know if God exists, and you also don't know if fairies exist or not.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that to the extent that I can say that I'm confident fairies don't exist, I feel that same confidence about the non-existence of a God. And the reason for it is the same, that where the evidence should be, it isn't.
Do you know if God exists or not?
Where is your evidence that there is a God beyond just you exist?
But do you know that God does not exist?
Oh my God, I'm done with this.